Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels with me, Martin, joined by Jill and Sean.
Hi.
Hello. And this week we've been out and about and I had a really interesting chat with a guy that loves his plants. It's Michael Perry, aka Mr Plant Geek.
And we've got some jobs. Martin's keeping us busy in the garden with lots of things to do with our tomatoes. So top tips for your tomatoes. And then we've got some listeners' questions, including someone who's struggling with their sweet peas.
All that coming up. Remember, if you've got a question for us, drop us an email, info@potsandtrowels.com. But first, let's meet Mr Plant Geek.
Michael, how did it all start for you in the world of horticulture?
Oh, it was with my grandparents. As early as I can remember, I was potting up. I was identifying iris from the colour of the rootstock as well, like the kind of bearded iris. I started selling plants at the WI market with my grandma as well. And yeah, I even had a herb nursery when I was 12 years old.
Really?
Little mail order herb nursery.
So that's pretty good going, that is, isn't it? Yes, in the days when mail order, weren't as popular as they are now.
I used to have little ads in the back of Garden as well magazine.
Fantastic. Oh, brilliant. So I suppose from an early age, you knew this is what you were going to do for a job, when you left school.
I think I really loved plants, but I also kind of was quite entrepreneurial. I really liked making money, and I don't remember ever getting any pocket money. And I think I was like subsidizing myself by selling the plants and stuff. But I just really liked the buzz of it, and I think that kind of led me into liking slightly different plants and kind of I don't know, and then seeing the potential in them, selling them to people, and of course that brings in a whole lot of marketing stuff as well.
Exactly,
doesn't it?
yeah, and that's one of the things you are very good on, the marketing, the social media. That is what you're known for. So when you left school, what was your first job in horticulture?
Yeah, well, in those days, I don't know how it is now, but they weren't very proactive at recommending horticulture, and it was always something that they recommended to you if they ran out of other options, which is kind of a bit annoying, a bit patronising, but actually it worked out perfect for me. So I went to horticulture college, bit of serendipity because it's in Suffolk where I'm from, so if there hadn't been a horticulture college, not sure what I would have ended up doing, but anyway, did a national diploma in horticulture, very general, but I really enjoyed plant ident, kind of biology side of stuff, etc. And then I was very shy in those days,
Really? Yeah. Find that hard to believe?
Totally. And I didn't have any confidence at all. And so that's where I kind of fell into going to college. I didn't feel confident enough to go to university, and I didn't really have any plan ahead. But it was getting towards the end of college, and I opened up the newspaper one day, and there was a competition in the Evening Star, the local paper in Ipswich in Suffolk, and it was to design a garden that would be built at Thompson & Morgan, very famous mail order company, also based in Ipswich in Suffolk. It was in conjunction with BBC Radio Suffolk as well, and I put together a design. I'm not a garden designer, so don't ever ask me to design your garden. But I put together a very basic design, and I filled the borders with plants that were raised in the Suffolk area. So things like Mendlesham pinks, hibiscus woodbridge, for example, from Knockcuts. So I won the competition, and I'd obviously shown a bit of kind of marketing flair with choosing those plants. And I didn't win a job, but I wrote in and asked for a job 2 weeks later, and they brought me on as an apprentice.
Right.
And that was then 18 years at Thompson & Morgan, working on new products, copywriting, photography, started to get into the PR side of it, going out searching for the new plants, naming plants, reinventing older plants with new USPs, reasons to grow them, and it was amazing.
And I think that's when I very first came across you, because they used to do their press days. I don't think they do them now, but they used to have quite big press days, and all members of the press were there. There were big events, and you were there, and I think it was at the time when you introduced Tom Tato. So which I can't remember how many years ago that is, but it's quite a few years ago now. So that was one of your finds, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Tom Tato was sold perhaps in a much better way in US as ketchup and fries, which really says what it does on the tin, because it's a grafted plant that is tomatoes on the top, potatoes on the bottom. Yeah. Not a new concept. They were doing it during war times to kind of save space, but it is a graft, and we kind of brought it to a commercial audience and with good quality rootstock and material. So good cropping potato, super sweet tomato. We also worked on egg and chips plant, aubergine, aka eggplant,
tried that one.
potato. Different concepts as well. So I brought in tree lilies, which was a nice way of using old floristry lilies because they're nice and tall, grow them at the back of the border, super hardy. Lots and lots of new plants, naming collections, doing the whole shebang really. And then that pushed me into doing a little bit of TV here and there. And now I've been freelance for about 8 years and doing speaking, hosting, kind of whatever comes up really. Content creation, videos.
And where did the name Mr Plant Geek come from? Is that did that come later on when you left Thompson and Morgan and you were freelance?
Yeah, it's so funny because most things I tend to never really have a plan. I just let things take me in the direction it takes me. And I think that is the best way to be, because then you follow your instincts and you pivot when you need to, etc. And I think I knew I needed an identity to move forward with when I left T&M. It kind of summed up what I'm about, Mr Plant Geek, because I'm a geek about plants, especially new, different, unusual plants. And it was also a kind of tribute to feeling like a geek when I was young, which was something I was embarrassed about. And like, to be a geek in the old days, you were kind of like, I hid my love of plants from all my school friends. But now I'm out of it, I'm proud, and I call myself Mr Plant Geek. Yeah,
and it works really well, and everybody knows you by that name.
No, it's good to have a little kind of, I guess, nickname, because, you see I use social media quite a lot, but I really use it as a portfolio. It's kind of like the modern day curriculum vitae. Yeah, it really, is, isn't it? To be honest.
You don't need a CV on paper anymore, do you?
So I'm never like, oh my God, I want more followers or more likes. No, I want it to be a showcase. So someone searches, I pop up, they can see the whole medley of, work that I can then do and what I could offer different companies.
And through your social media, you're very supportive of growers and anything horticultural, plant-based, essentially, aren't you? You get involved. It's not about you, it's about the wider horticultural world.
Well, I see myself as really a connector. And because I've got a lot of those industry contacts from my days at Thompson & Morgan, I've got a lot of contact now with the public through followers, through social media platforms. I feel like I'm connecting the two. So I'm really giving the industry access to the consumer, so they can then give feedback of what they want in their gardens, what works for them, what doesn't. But also so the consumer sees what's happening in the industry. That justifies the price that they pay for a plant in the garden centre. But also it kind of hopefully inspires them to take a career in the industry.
Exactly.
Because it is very varied, and it is not just being a landscape gardener or a designer, which are great jobs, but you could also be working in an office writing copy. You could also be working in TV. There's so much you can do in horticulture.
Yeah,
and
that is all gardening
beautiful.
Connected.
Yeah,
absolutely. Totally. And you do a podcast as well, don't you, with Ellen Mary, which you've been doing for a few years, very successful, award-winning.
Yeah, we've got the plant-based podcast, which is then broadening out plants almost, like not just plants you would grow, but also that you would eat, you would wear, you would drink, so the whole kind of like bigger picture really, which is good. And we work really well together, and I think you can see with everything I do, I want to be relaxed, welcoming, have a laugh, but also have a serious message behind it all.
Exactly, getting that word about gardening out there. Good.
But being accessible, because people are too serious in life sometimes. We can get our message across much more easily by just smiling.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, we've got some plants that you've collected. So what we'll do, we'll take a short break. We're going to have a look at these plants and let you explain what they are.
Cool.
Well, we're not too serious here, that's for sure. Well, hopefully you get a bit of a laugh out of the Pots and Trowels podcast, right? We don't want to lecture at people.
No, exactly, and I think that's the whole thing about Michael, Mr Plant Geek. He's trying to get to a different audience by it's not being funny with it, but he's not too serious so he can engage them, and that's our attitude, I think, isn't it?
Well, I hope so. I mean,
be a bit light-hearted, and people.
Yeah, people do want serious information, don't they?
They do.
But there are ways of putting that over, and
it's the way you deliver
chatting.
it, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also, people can be intimidated by, if you're too serious and too, formal about something, it can be quite intimidating, can't it? I certainly find that, because I've got much more into gardening through working with you two on Pots and Trowels. Whereas before I would have thought, well, that's something those people who are gardeners do, when actually gardening is something anyone can do. Yeah, and that's like, philosophical note for the day.
I always think, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, that's very true.
Coming up later in the show, we've got some jobs for you and some listeners' questions. Remember, if you've got a question, drop us an email, and Martin and Jill says for you, the email address is info@potsandtrowels.com.
Picking up on what Michael was saying, we have grown the tomato and the egg and chip plants, haven't we? And they were good fun. They were really good fun. They were quite expensive to buy. I mean, this is going back a few years when they were first introduced.
Well, I think actually we were sent on free by the company.
But,
well, can I just point out, I don't know what a tomato is. Is that some kind of hybrid then? Because I might have missed that.
Well, Michael was talking about it. I think that's when I first met him, he'd introduced it with Thompson and Morgan. And it's basically, I think he said in the States, is it called the ketchup and fries? So it's tomatoes and potatoes all on the same plant. They're the same family, Solanums. So what they do is they graft a small piece of a tomato plant onto the shoot of a potato.
Wow.
You grow it in a container, and as it grows, it just looks like an ordinary tomato. You side shoot it, you feed it in exactly the same way, harvest your tomatoes, and then at the end of the season, when it's finished, you cut the top off and then leave it just for a week or two for the potatoes to set, tip them out, and you get a boiling of potatoes. And we did grow it, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And the potatoes were nice. The tomatoes were good as well,
Yeah,
weren't they?
you didn't get a huge amount of potatoes.
No.
You didn't get as many as you would do if it was an ordinary potato plant. But it's a bit of a novelty and a fun thing to buy somebody.
Yeah.
And if you're
So,
restricted for space, then that's a perfect way to double up then, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I didn't realise that it's been done for, he said it was done in the war. That's how it all first came about, because people were trying to maximise their growing space. So I wasn't aware of that. So interesting. And Michael has also, we talked about he's always looking for new plants, but quite a lot of the old favourites he's trying to get back to a modern audience, so which is good that he's doing that. So he is out there promoting plants.
Well, I think he talks about some of that in the next
He
part,
does,
doesn't he?
yes.
Because he's sort of looking at some fuchsias that were, sort of quite old traditional
Well, and
plants.
coleus as well.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing that.
But yet another garden person who was influenced by their grandparents. We just almost everybody that we chat to on Pots and Trowels seems to have had that influence of a grandparent, don't they? That's really got them into gardening.
Absolutely. And I like the idea that he entered this competition, he won the competition, and then he said, "Oh, gives a job."
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, he said he was very shy, which I find hard to believe, really, because but he's obviously, sort of come out of himself and got his confidence.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy, Michael, and full of lots of stories.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Have we got time for some gardening questions then?
We
think we
have,
have.
definitely. Well, of course, we were chatting to Michael at Tatton, weren't we? I get confused as to where we've just come back from, but at Tatton Flower Show. And I should just say, we've had loads of people who've come up to us and say they love the Pots and Trowels videos, they love the podcasts, keep on going. So thank you to everybody who did come up and say hello. One of whom was Andrea. See, did you like the link that I did there?
Like
that was quite
segue,
good, wasn't it? Yeah, and Andrea did actually tell us off a little bit because we haven't answered her question. She sent it a little while ago and we haven't actually answered it. So
is this where we pull back the
listening.
Screens and say that we had to do a couple in advance because you two are travelling so much?
Exactly,
We did confess that to her, yeah.
Yes,
so she was.
And she had
was
Michael with her as well, partner Michael.
No, I don't
David.
think Michael.
David, rather. I've still got Michael on the brain. Sorry, David, well done.
just swapped everybody over, but
Yes.
that's fine. So Andrea's got a couple of questions. We could do these back to back, can't we? And she does actually say, "Hi, hope you're having a great time at the show." So that was lovely. We did. So when Andrea was living in Harrogate, she had a rose and loved it. It was a big rambler and it smelt absolutely divine, but she's trying to find out what it was. I don't think she knew what it was when she had it in Harrogate. So whether she's looking at getting another one or not, I'm not quite sure. She has attached some photos,
which I've had a
you've
look
had
at.
a little look at.
Yeah.
Is she right in thinking it might be wedding day?
Well, I've had a look at the photographs, Andrew, and it certainly fits the description really well. I mean, it's a rambling rose, it's quite vigorous, but it's got these really dainty, almost like the white rose of York flowers. Those it's a single rose with just the 5 petals there, yellow stamens, and it does become quite vigorous.
Was there a hint of pink?
I think the flowers fade from white to slightly pink, which often when rose flowers fade, they do change colour slightly. So from the description and the photos you've sent, having looked it up, I think it could well be Wedding Day, which is a lovely rose and still available. The only other one it could be is Kifsgate, and Kifsgate is very similar. That's quite a vigorous one. People plant it up trees or to hide walls. Very similar. Kifsgate has got very glossy foliage, whereas I think Wedding Day hasn't, and it's got also quite a lot of thorns on it. So that might be the deciding factor whether yours was really thorny or not very thorny. If it's not very thorny, I think you were right with Wedding Day.
Okay, and then just another quick one from Andrea. She sent us some more photos. This was a separate email, and she's got a tree that's not looking wonderful. She actually says it's quite pathetic looking, but its blossom was magnificent earlier on this this year. It's now got brown marked leaves. Lots of them have dropped off with little spiders living in the curled up brown leaves that are still on the tree. She wants to take it out, but it has got lots of lovely new healthy growth ready to unfurl. She hasn't sprayed it because she gardens organically. It's a bit shall-she, shan't-she at the moment, I think, there. She has got it in front of a 5-foot brick wall with a 6-foot fence on top of it. So she wanted something that would kind of hide the wall.
Okay, well, and again, we've got some photographs. Strangely, it must have been raining the day you took the photographs, Andrea, because one of them you've taken from inside the house, and we can see all the raindrops on the window. So, but yeah, it's a Crataegus Paw Scarlet, one of the ornamental thorns. And they are lovely because they've got that lovely deep pinky red double blossom on them. I mean, it's only a young tree, so I wouldn't worry too much. And I see you've put the stake in at an angle because it was leaning. I think what I would try and do is probably straighten the tree up a little bit more. That's just a mention that having looked at the photograph, because it's, although you've got it fairly straight, it's leaning to one side, and if it grows in that position when you take the stake off, it will always be at an angle. So maybe just undo the strap, stand it more upright, tighten it again, and that will keep the stem vertical. But as to the problem with the marks on it, I think it's just a bit of scorch, or it could even be a leaf, a deficiency in the leaf, a nutrient deficiency. It's getting its roots out into your soil. It's been a building site, so we don't know what's underneath the ground. But I would say for a young tree that's settling in, that's had, a wet winter, we've had very changeable weather, it doesn't look too bad. I wouldn't worry too much about the little spiders. I think what I would do is maybe if you haven't, give it a feed, an organic feed, still time to do it, poultry pellets or bloodfish and bone, and I would make sure the ground is moist, and then give it a good mulch. Get some compost and mulch around it so that you're just helping to improve the soil, keeping the moisture there. And I think you'll find they often take 2 or 3 years to settle in, and then it will just go for it, and it will be absolutely amazing. Is that you on your motorbike, Sean?
No, I thought it was at your end. I was thinking, what's that noise? But that's okay. I'm the one who lives in the city, but yeah.
It is at our end. It's such a lovely, warm, sunny day. We're in the office and we've got the windows and the doors open, and a bike's just gone up the road.
I know, after all the miserable weather we've had, we've got to make the most of it, haven't we now?
Yeah, so normally you hear the birds tweeting, but the odd motorbike's We've got a couple of questions coming on YouTube. I've just been working my way through one of them. It's been, there's quite a lot of information there, so I'm just going to give you the headlines if that's all right.
Okay.
This is from Naomi, and Naomi has been watching our pinching out sweet peas video. They say they have 3 sets of bottom leaves all starting to go yellow, even though the plant is super healthy. They let it get 30 centimetres long, or about a foot long, and it splits like a fork in the road about 20 centimetres. Should they let it just continue what it's doing or pinch it out? They're confused. It's not begun to flower. Didn't see it flowering at all. But the bean plants planted next to it are very healthy. So I suppose they're mainly wondering why the bottom leaves are yellowing and whether they should pinch it.
Okay. Well, I think just to put your mind at rest, Naomi, quite a lot of people I've been talking to this year have said their sweet peas are late. Jonathan Mosley, who we work with a lot, he grows them for cut flowers, and various people have said they're all a bit late. So I think that's the spring weather has slowed them down. Ours have only just got going over the last few weeks, and we've been picking flowers. So I wouldn't worry too much. The yellow leaves, that's not unusual for the lower leaves, because as it grows and makes new strong growth, then all the energy goes to the top of the plant and it forgets about those leaves lower down. So I wouldn't worry about that. It's nothing wrong with it. What you could do is maybe give it a liquid feed, because it should now be making quite strong growth and it should be starting to flower. So give it a liquid feed. I wouldn't now pinch out, because pinching out will delay flowering even more. So you've got 2 stems. You don't have to pinch out. The idea of pinching out the main stem is so that instead of a single stem, it will produce 2 or 3 new stems, and then long term you get more flowers. So, in the wild, the seed would drop on the floor and it would grow a single stem. Nobody pinches it out. So I would just give it a feed so that it's got plenty of nutrients, and let it do its own thing. And I'm sure you will get some flowers later on in the summer.
Super stuff. Another question came in on YouTube, posted on our Sweet William video from a week or 2 ago. It's Margaret. They say, lovely video, easy to follow. Could I use the same approach with antirrhinum seed.
Right, okay, so these were Sweet Williams that I was doing on the video. So we were sowing Sweet William seed in trays. They've now germinated, been pricked out, growing on nicely. They'll go in the garden in the autumn and then flower next year, because they're what we call a biennial. It takes 2 growing seasons to complete their life cycle. So first season is making growth, second season is flowering. Antirrhinums are usually grown as an annual, but very often they grow as a short-lived perennial. So sometimes if you have them in the garden or they self-seed, they will self-seed in the autumn, overwinter, flower the next year. And if it's a mild winter, they'll actually survive for another one. So in theory, yes, you could do exactly the same, Margaret, with them. You could sow them now if you wanted, as long as you live somewhere fairly sheltered. If you live somewhere where it gets to -20 in the winter, then I wouldn't do it. But if you got a sheltered garden, then they would probably be absolutely fine. Or the other alternative is you start the seed off very early next year, sort of February, March time, to give them a full growing season then.
Which just reminds us to remind you to tell us where you are in the world when you're asking the questions. Remember, just drop us an email if you have got a question, info@Pots and Trowels. Tell us where you are and what your name is, and we'll try and get it answered on the podcast.
Good. And we've got some jobs coming up later, haven't we?
We have, but shall we go back to Michael and see what plants he's discovered?
Oh, yeah.
I see you've got yourself together a collection of plants, quite an eclectic mix here. So do you want to just talk us through a few of these, Michael, and tell us why you've got them here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is part of my wanting to always connect people. So I wanted people to come to the main stage here at RHS Tatton and to see what they could potentially then buy over in the marquee. And so I've got a bit of a showcase of some amazing plants. First of all, this one is Begonia Black Knight. Yeah. And isn't it gorgeous? It is a Rex type begonia, but Begonia Rex has undergone so much breeding in the last few years that it's kind of like, it's almost streets apart from the original ones that my grandma grew, because these are now bigger, better, stronger, able to be growing outdoors on a patio in the summer as well as indoors, and it's almost like velveteen.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, and such a deep, rich colour, isn't it?
Definitely.
I'm assuming this is from Dibley's.
Yes, this is from Dibley's, North
Begonia.
Wales, breeding begonias, streptocarpus, so many gesneriads, and I was very lucky to visit last year after Tatton and have a tour with Lynn. It's amazing the stuff they've got there, and I love these type of begonias because when they need watering, they let you know very clearly. They just go blum.
Yeah.
But they come back within literally half an hour. So they're kind of like, that makes them weirdly user-friendly. Do you know what I mean?
It does,
There's no
it?
guesswork when it comes to that.
It's no longer a specialist plant. You can almost be a beginner and it will tell you when it needs a drink.
And it's got flowers, but they're kind of like insignificant, really.
Yeah,
but
the foliage is amazing,
like
isn't
mini
it?
apples, actually.
They are, aren't they? Yeah, they are. Yeah, little winged fruits there. So what else have we got then?
Yeah, so we've got this beautiful Sarracenia from Wax Wicked Plants, who are in Knaresborough, just outside Harrogate.
Yeah.
And what amazing plants. I think carnivorous plants are really having their moment, like many plants at the minute.
They are.
Yeah.
And Pete
and hardy,
is
great for outdoors.
And he grows a big range. We spoke to Pete on one of the podcasts a few weeks ago up at Harlow Car.
Yeah.
And he's got an amazing collection.
Incredible, honestly. And also this morning, I walked past their stand here in the marquee, and they were cutting off some of the faded flowers. Well, not really flowers, but the stems here. And I was like, can I take this home to put in a vase?
Yeah.
Because they can be a cut flower as well.
Yeah,
which is really, really cool. Because, of course, remember, these are not the flowers, these are the leaves that are then kind of evolved to then capture insects, because you've got that little slide where they slip down and they get caught at the bottom. But the flowers are amazing, aren't they? They're almost like kind of like alien daffodils.
They are.
Yeah.
Where
was it? I think it was at Malvern Spring Show. They had them all in flower.
Yes, because they flower in
There
spring.
was double flowered ones as well.
Yeah.
It was
some
beautiful.
have a sort of rosy pink colour to them as well as the green. I think some florists are now using them as a cut flower,
Very
something
cool.
a little bit different. So,
well, I've got some around the back to take home, so I'll be experimenting myself.
Yeah, don't blame you. Have a go.
So Ottershaw cacti, love those guys, down in Surrey near Woking. Range of aeoniums and semponiums as well. The semponiums are bred by Surreal Succulents down in Cornwall, hybrid between sempervivum and aeonium. And there's a lot of buzz around these type of kind of hardy succulents at the moment as well, because of course drought tolerant, easy to grow, and colourful and very collectible. I think that's important for a plant as well too. So,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Great for the patio, cold conservatory, aren't they? Yeah, and the semponiums are hardier than the aeonium, of course, aren't
absolutely.
they? So,
and of course, other hybrids you've got out there that are kind of making a buzz in that world is the mangava, which is the agave crossed with manfreda as well. So succulents are really having their moment too, but this plant next to it I think is on the verge of a big moment. coleus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, they were big 40 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was an apprentice gardener, we grew them on the parks department, and all the name varieties, not the seed varieties, and these beautiful rich colours. I mean, this one is sort of, like a burnt orange.
This is a campfire.
Yes,
yeah. And it is, it's again, it looks like velvet.
Yeah.
And I remember my grandma used to grow the kind of camouflage, I think it's called camouflage. It's the one that really has got all the different colours in.
Yes.
And she also used to grow them from seed. I remember she used to nip out the flowers because they come through in this most bright blue.
That's right.
Which is they don't really match. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's quite strange. So I tend to nip the flowers out. But amazing plants. And there's a grower over there. I can't remember their name.
Don.
Don.
Yes, Don. I know the guy. I can't remember his surname, but he's got the pelargoniums as well as.
Because I said, he's got the apple blossom and the tulip flower pelargoniums. Yes. But I said to him the other day, he probably thought I was a crazy guy going past, and I was like firing off to him about coleus and la la la. And I was like, your company name's not that catchy. You should call yourselves Coleus Crazy.
Yeah, well, he's DNS. Is his
DNS,
name.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Coleus Crazy, because I think we're on the verge of a big trend in coleus.
Yeah.
Because, again, I was then connecting. I put a reel up of this on Instagram, and of course those guys haven't got Instagram, so it's nice for them to then see what the public and the social media public thinks of this, and they were like, wow, coleus.
Yeah.
And people are like, I could get obsessed with these, which
Absolutely,
is what we want.
because he's got a whole range of colours. I mean,
totally.
he's nearly 90, and he's probably one of the few growers with a big collection. So we need to get other people growing these, Michael. It's up to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm on it.
You're on it.
But also, interestingly, at Gardeners World Live, the skeletal came top in one of the categories, which is the split-leaved one.
Yes.
More like Wisley tapestry a little bit, but kind of a lot more split. And that, I think the main interest with coleus is maybe going to come through on the lace leaf types, actually, which will then lead on to the popularity with these bigger leaf types. But great for outdoors as well. We always think of them as a house plant, but they're now, border and patio
absolutely,
plant as well.
patio plant. They're perfect. And really easy to take from cuttings as well, so you can propagate them.
Probably in water as well, right?
Yeah, they probably would do,
easy.
but take some cuttings so you've got plants to overwinter.
Superb.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the final one I want to show you is this fuchsia, Waltz Dubeltine. Might not feel new to us, been around for many years, but I think it's very interesting to show the newer audience, because I don't know about you, Martin, but there's been such a different demographic walking in these shows over the years. And for them to then see an out-facing, up-facing fuchsia is very different, because usually a fuchsia is nice, but it kind of, they dangle down, they hide themselves, you don't really see inside, you don't see the beauty, but this is gorgeous, and this is from... I was practicing saying it. Ruellen. They're in Wales as well.
They're Wales, North Wales, Snowdonia, yes.
And they do amazing fuchsias.
They do, yeah. They've got a huge collection and do fantastic displays at the shows. And this is what I think one of their best sellers at the moment. For that reasons you've just said, I think.
And great value as well. I mean, because it's up facing, and that. And is this borderline hardy probably as well? This Waltz Dubeltine?
I think he said this one. It does need a little bit of protection.
Just about,
but it'll stand down to sort of probably freezing. But it's got a nice upright habit as well.
Totally.
So great in a container.
And also, for some people, they will approach a certain plant like a big flowered fuchsia, and they'll see it as quite old-fashioned, like they would with begonias as well. And I think that is where it's nice, because we can then show them something new that is in that. It's still relatable, so they're like, oh, my grandma grew fuchsias, I can grow that. It feels easy, but different, more contemporary through some eyes as well.
Yeah, so, no, it is.
That's a little tour of my
wonderful
plots
there you go.
I've got
You've made a lovely collection of plants here on the stage.
Well, I wanted to showcase and connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's all about promoting the growers as well, isn't it? And getting people to buy plants.
And we're selling as well, so if you fancy that begonia, that's £50.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was good value.
Do your deal?
That. Yeah, all right. We'll have a chat later. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
So did you buy any?
No, I didn't. No,
well done.
I did resist. We've got a beautiful big Dibley's dark leaf begonia in the living room as it is. So I've got a couple of others as well. So
we did come back with a really nice new house plant. I wouldn't let him bring anything else for the garden, but we did bring a nice house plant back with a zebra stem.
Called Alocasia zebrina, I think it was, which has got a stripy stem that looks like a zebra's leaf, sort of dark and light stripes.
It's lovely. I really like that one.
Yes,
quite excited.
I bought you that for your birthday. Well
yeah,
done.
Right.
Also, a lot of those plants that you were talking about there and that Michael was mentioning, we've got videos with some of those growers and masterpieces.
We have,
yeah. Carnivorous plants, I noticed you mentioned, Ruellen fuchsias. We've got a fantastic video on fuchsias.
Yes, they're all there. So, yes, have a look at those if you want to see what those plants are like in the flesh, as it were.
Absolutely.
Right, some jobs then.
Yes.
Is it time for jobs?
Yes.
Well, I mean, here we are getting to the end of another month. Where has this year gone? It's flying by, isn't
Well,
it?
but the weather's been so peculiar, hasn't it? We've been cold, quite cool and damp, and then suddenly we'd have some really hot sun. So I know in the veg plot, our cauliflowers have just
Gone mad.
they've yeah.
We went away and they were tiny little cauliflower curds, came back to the size of a dinner plate.
Yeah.
Never eaten so much cauliflower cheese.
I put some old cauliflower seeds that I had in a pot, thinking if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And last week I saw one seedling poking its amazing, and then I came back the next day and something had pecked it off. It'd gone.
Oh, sure.
I was getting so excited. I've never grown a cauliflower in my life before.
If you live near, you come and get one.
I was going to say, come and help yourself.
Yeah.
Do How are your strawberries doing? Just are they?
Well, the plants are fabulous. I haven't got any more fruit there.
Okay.
The fruit was good. It was just sporadic, bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah.
Okay.
My big issue at the moment, and I know we're supposed to be getting onto jobs, is the tomato plants that I put in our raised beds, which I planted too close together. We have a tomato jungle.
Okay.
Because you'll still get fruit.
Yeah, my father-in-law gave me some plants and mentioned that 2 or 3 of them were cherry tomatoes, and they were at the time they were smaller plants. So in my head, they were going to be smaller plants. Well, now of course they're all about the same size.
Yeah.
Huge. But yeah, no, it'll work. It'll work.
Well, that leads perfectly on, Sean, to
might have rehearsed
No, we
that.
haven't. No, not at all. To my main job is about tomatoes because I've had various people asking me. Somebody only last week at the flower show about tomatoes saying, should he take all the leaves off his tomato plants? So I said, why do you want to take them off? He said, because somebody has told me that you should take all the leaves off so the energy goes into the fruit. He's not picking the fruit isn't ripe. And I said, are your leaves yellow? He said, no, they're green, but they've said they're going to be in the way. So I thought I would just touch on tomatoes. So if you're going tomato plants like Sean, either the straight up ones or the bush ones, the only time you would take a tomato leaf off is when it goes yellow, because while it's green, it's making food and feeding the plant and helping the fruits swell and also ripen. So you can take off the side shoots, the little shoots that grow between the main stem and the leaf if it's an upright one. But what we never do is take the leaves off until they start to go yellow, and then they always go yellow at the bottom first, and then you work your way up. And by then, the fruit should be fully formed and starting to ripen. The other thing is keep on feeding them. Make sure you feed them every week with a high potash fertilizer. And the other thing I've been asked about within the last few weeks is, do you let them ripen on the plant, or do you take them off when they're still green and ripen them? Well, no, you don't. You might do that in November because the plants are getting cold, but they ripen better on the plant. So wait until they're fully ripe and then pick them off, and they'll do much better. So we're going to actually do a little short video on this, Sean, because I think it's a good reminder for people. So that will be out in another week or so. Any veg in the garden that's finished, lots of things are now finishing, like the broad beans and early salad crops and spinach. Get rid of those, clear the ground, and if you can still get hold of some plants for like winter cauliflowers or winter cabbages or kale plants, you can get those in the garden now, and they've got August, September and October to establish before the winter. And you can be sowing radishes, baby carrots, salads right the way through August, and you'll still get some nice crops from those. And then finally, if you've got your lovely flowering containers outside or your hanging baskets, this is the time of the year when they need plenty of water. Hopefully we won't be getting too much rain, but we get the warmth so they dry out. And even if you get a shower of rain, it doesn't water the plants in your containers. So make sure they never dry out. Feed them weekly with that high potash feed that you're also giving to your tomatoes, and deadhead them. And by doing that, you'll keep them going right the way through into early autumn. So there you go. A few
Good
jobs
stuff.
to be getting on with.
I did also sow some. I bought some seed from King Seed, some salad seeds. I bought a couple of different lettuce varieties is the word I'm looking for, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm learning.
yeah.
And some spring onions, and the lettuce is doing lovely. Basically in a shallow bowl that I put on a potting table.
Very good.
Yeah.
Keeps them away from the slugs. So
Excellent.
yeah, so if anyone else is interested in those King Seeds offers, you have to get over to our YouTube channel and have a look at the videos, and you'll find a special code for 10% off.
Yes, get your discount, 10%. Every little bit counts.
Good stuff.
So, yes.
We're about there, are we?
We
I
are,
think we
yeah,
are.
plenty to be getting on with, and we need to get out and do some gardening.
I need
now.
to make some cauliflower cheese.
You do, but we'll be back again next week.
We'll
so
see
we'll
you
see you then, eh?
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Watch the videos on YouTube or Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter or X, and subscribe to the podcast and never miss a thing. For more information, go to potsandtrowels.com.